Here with today's edition, October 6th, this day in Black baseball history. And yeah, coming to you live. It's a Monday night. And this is going to be what are we going to call this? The October 6th, 2025 edition of This Day in African American Baseball History. I'm not going to be here long tonight, but I'm just going to cover a few things and try to knock out a few things. And in case you've never caught me live, or if you wonder what we're doing here, my program talks about a specific incident that happens this day in Black baseball history, and which is today, October 6th. And I give commentary related to the teams, or or the players, or the city, or something like that. And it comes from my more than 45 years as a baseball historian. So I'm trying to make this history come alive for you and make it relevant. All right. So I'm a person who's really kind of lived a lot of this history. Not kind of. I really have truly lived a lot of this history. And so I'm always excited to talk about this history. And also, if you follow me any amount of time, maybe you've purchased one of my books. I've been a published author since 1992. I've done have a lot of publications out there. I do a lot of speaking presentations around the country, and so I pick up a lot of people that way. But I'm new to this medium, which is the YouTube, and so I've been on maybe about 2 months now. I'm going on 3 months. So guys, if you see something you like here and you want to join in, by all means, go ahead and subscribe and follow me live. I'll be bringing a lot of interesting information. So we're right about 2 minutes, so why don't we just jump right in here? Just got a few things tonight. So we're going to talk about, let's go to Sunday, October 6, 1907. And the Chicago Union Giants won their 10th straight victory with a 10-4 triumph over the St. Paul Gophers at Chicago's Artesian Park. Joe Green led all batters with 3 hits. Okay, let's try to look at this a little closer. Okay. So the Chicago Union Giants, I think that was Peter's team. And when I think about the Chicago Union Giants, I think one thing that is really a shame is that really I don't think there's anybody from the Chicago Union Giants that's in the Hall of Fame. And I know in the case of Peters, who was the owner, there are people who are in the Hall of Fame and, who didn't have as an illustrious career as he had as an owner of a team. Started out as a player, became an owner. And so there are people in the Hall of Fame that don't quite have his MO. And so that's one that I like to mention. And of course, some of the great players that played for the Chicago Union Giants. One of them here, I visited his marker where he is buried in Topeka, Kansas. Topeka Jack Johnson, who played for them. He was a great player. Topeka Jack Johnson is buried, of course, in Topeka. He was a professional boxer, and he ended up being manager of the Topeka Giants and started that team. And he did a lot. He did a lot with baseball, and he did a lot with boxing. His name was Topeka Jack Johnson. Of course, they had to distinguish him from the original or the other world champion Jack Johnson. But they did have a boxing match. I think it was maybe 1920, maybe 1919 at the federal penitentiary in Leavenworth, where Jack Johnson was serving time. So they actually did have a fight. So that was one person. Of course, Bill Monroe, who I talk about a lot, played with the Union Giants. Mike Moore, who I talked about just a day or so ago, and one of my other ones, who I think is one of the greatest all-around utility players of all time, played with the Chicago Union Giants. They had a lot of good players. Walter Ball came through there. He was an outstanding pitcher. Could make a good argument for him being a Hall of Famer as well. So anyway, that's the Chicago Union Giants. Don't know if you know much about them, but in the baseball universe at that particular time, 2 of the most powerful teams were actually the most powerful cities were New York and Chicago. So all the really good ball players were trying to get to Chicago or to New York. And of course, the Union Giants were the team that you would want to sign up with when you came there, especially right around 1901, 1902, 1903. Also, the Chicago Columbia Giants were really strong as well. So, yeah, the great history there, not talked about enough. Chicago is a very, very outstanding city for African American baseball. And so I'm always happy to talk about things in Chicago. I used to go there quite a bit. There were lots of ball players. I used to go and visit Subby Bias quite a bit, Jimmy Crutchfield. Who else I visited? Of course, visited Ted Ratcliffe many, many times. And those are some of my favorites that I would visit there. They had a group called the Chicago Old Pros, and I used to go to their meeting. Palmer Wiggins, Maurice Palmer Wiggins, used to head up that organization when I came in the early '80s, and they used to meet at a funeral home. So you had to go to the funeral home. That's where they had their meetings. It was the best place to meet on Chicago's South Side. So anyway, I'm just throwing out some stuff that I happen to remember, and that was stuff from the 1980s. All right. So let's go to another one. October the 6th, 1932. Pitcher Charlie Beverly struck out 15 batters and tossed a 5-hitter to help the Kansas City Monarchs to a 5-0 win at Fort Scott, Kansas, and they were playing at Hilltop Park. And the local team was strengthened by the addition of Don Gutteridge of the Pittsburgh, Kansas, and Mickey Nance, a third baseman from Joplin. Boy, I can tell you some things there. Well, let's go to Don Gutteridge first. When I was a kid, first starting to follow baseball, Don Gutteridge was the manager of the White Sox. And years later, he moved back to Pittsburgh. And I used to talk to Don all the time. On the telephone, I would call him. And of course, he played for the White Sox. And he was a player. He played for the St. Louis Cardinals, too. And so this was talking about the 30s. And so Don Gutteridge, I learned a lot from him related to baseball. He could tell you who was kin. And these guys knew these Negro Leaguers intimately, and they knew members of the Kansas City Monarchs, and they could call them by first and last name because they knew them and they played against them quite a bit, even though he was in the National League playing most of his career with the Cardinals. So yeah, Don Gutteridge, he passed away in Pittsburgh, and just so happens that I'll be speaking in Pittsburgh probably in about 2 weeks. Pittsburgh, Kansas, that is. So anyway, that's Don Gutteridge's hometown. I'll get a chance to maybe dig some of my notes out and see what Don told me and go a little deeper on some of the conversation I had. But Don was an interesting guy, truly was, and I learned a lot from him as well. And then let's see, also Charlie Beverly, who had struck out 15. Now Charlie Beverly, I always like to say Charlie Beverly was one of the outstanding pitchers of the 1930s. Chet Brewer told me that he did not have a curveball, just had a fastball. And he said, but he got a lot of hitters out because he had this little funny kind of hitch in his pitching form, and they could get you out. I remember someone telling me that Jaime Manush used to play several games against Beverly, and Manush told someone, he said, "I know what he's throwing, I still can't hit it." Beverly was an outstanding lefty by the way. And the other thing is, he was the equivalent at that particular time in black baseball circles as Satchel Paige or Slim Jones in the 30s, but he had no color, which means that he just got out there, he pitched. He didn't do anything special. He didn't tell any humorous stories to the media. He just came out there and did his job day in and day out. And he was the guy, especially on the left-hand side, who carried the Kansas City Monarchs through the early part, maybe 1931 when they traded for him. And he came to the team from Texas. Him and Moochie, what was his name? Moochie Harris, Curtis Moochie Harris. They came together. And but Charlie Beverly was a great one. I ended up acquiring Bullet Rogan's telephone book. And it had the addresses of different players in there. I got that from his son. And so I was able to find different people. And this is before they had like newspapers online. And of course, if you wanted to do ancestry, any genealogy, you had to go down to the National Archives, sit in a dark room all day just a whole different era of doing research. But so that book, that address book, was real key, and Charlie Beverly ended up being a longshoreman. It was out in the West Coast. I think he was working out of San Francisco, if I remember. But anyway, he ended up passing away. I think he went back to Texas. So Charlie Beverly. He also had a relative, Bill Beverly, that played later on. He was a pitcher, and I think he played some minor league ball there in the early 50s. I did talk to Bill as well. And there was another guy that was their cousin too. I'm trying to think of his name. He played for the Kansas City Monarchs. Bale. Oh man, what was his name? I see his face now, but I can't remember his name. So okay, well, we won't talk about that. If it comes to me in this broadcast, I'll go ahead and say it. All right, well, let me give you one more fact, and then I know some of you probably are sports fans. You're watching Monday Night Football happen on in the background, and it looks like the Chiefs are trying to catch up with their opponent, right? So anyway, let's go to one more, and this is another guy I had interaction with, and on October 6, 1959, Dennis Oil Can Boyd is born in Meridian, Mississippi. He was drafted by the Boston Red Sox in the 16th round in 1980, and he won 15 games in 1985 and 16 games in 1986 for the Boston Red Sox. Oh, I remember Dennis Oil Can Boyd very well. Back in the, I say that particular time, 85, I carried a Major League Press pass, so I would talk to a number of these guys. They'd come through. And then later on, I think maybe 88, 89, actually was assistant director of public relations for the Kansas City Royals. So when they would come to town, now the teams at that particular time, most of them stayed at the Adams Mark Hotel. And the Yankees always stayed at the Crown Center. And so I was kind of also a collector too. So sometimes I'd go down there to get an interview. I remember going down there and interviewing Ken Griffey's dad down there at the Crown Center. And also, I used to talk to all the time over at, they stayed at, the Red Sox stayed at the Intercontinental Hotel on the Country Club Plaza. And so I would go over there, and I remember I would meet him and Ellis Burks often. And so I would talk to them. And I think the only other team I remember staying at the Intercontinental might have been the Angels might have stayed there. And but yeah, most everybody stayed at the Adams Mark Hotel. So after the game, you could go over there. A lot of guys would come down to the bar. They had a bar down there with a live band, and it was always jumping in that hotel at that time. So man, times really changed. The ball players come down and they'd be down there partying with the people. And I don't know if they had a curfew, but they were down there. So anyway, just great times, and I've learned a lot and experienced a lot as I go through this sports history. But I've just really been blessed. And so this is a whole new medium for me, being on YouTube. But I like to tell what I know, right? And some of these things will never appear in books unless somebody just happens to listen here and decide they want to write it in a book. I have so many experiences, I don't know if I can ever get them all in a book. So today we talked about the Chicago Union Giants, putting a wrap on this. Of course, Charlie Beverly, Don Gutteridge. Didn't talk much about Mickey Nance, but also Dennis Oil Can Boyd, and someone who I actually had the honor of shaking his hand. So that's where I'm going to leave it at. Oh, by the way, that other cousin to Charlie Beverly was Tom Cooper, who played with the Monarchs the late 40s, early 50s, 1951, 52, somewhere in there. Tom Cooper was his relative, yeah. So anyway, that does it for me tonight. Short broadcast. We can get out here about 15 minutes. Usually I go about 20, 25 minutes. So guys, feel free to come back. If you like what we're doing here, if you think it's interesting, you think it's good stuff, just go ahead and hit subscribe and you'll see my live. I'm going to do a lot more shorts and things like that. So everything's going real good. My goal right now is to probably at least get 500 subscribers by the end of the year, and then going into next year I'll go for the rest of the subscribers, and then it's just a matter of getting enough eyeballs on your broadcast to get monetized. So that's where we're going. And guys, you can always purchase my books too. I want to make sure I let you know of that. I'm getting ready to release a reprint of my book on the 1905 Philadelphia Giants, working on that now. But I have many books out there, and this is one I'm going to be taking to Pittsburgh, Kansas with me. Wilbur Bullet Rogan and the Kansas City Monarchs. And that one is out there. I have a good book on Dizzy Dean. Dizzy Dean. It's called The Dizzy and Daffy Dean Barnstorming Tour, Race, Media, and America's National Pastime. It's deep. It's deep. So if you like real history, now I'm telling you, you might want to listen to me. And I always tell people I don't have a job. I have a passion, and that's why I'm coming to you tonight with that passion. So thank you, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully I'll try to get on earlier. One of these days I'm going to figure out what's the best time, and I'm going to come on that time at least 3-4 times a week. All right? You're going to be able to set your clock by me. All right. Have a nice evening, and I'm going to go in here and finish watching the rest of the football game. Take it easy.